Episode 148, Retiring Abroad. Ooh, creating a secure, fulfilling life overseas. I'm so excited about this episode because I was just out to happy hour last night with one of my BFFs, and she's very, very successful. It's always good getting her insight because she works with a lot of very wealthy clients also. We kind of agreed that Portugal is the hot ticket. Now, there's like a couple of them. I like Spain, but she said Spain's a lot more expensive. My bottom line, in the event that we buy overseas, we already own outside the United States, but if we were to buy over in Europe, is either Portugal, Spain, or Italy. And I would never have considered Italy, but one of my neighbors I ran into at our club, and he and his wife are spending the summers over in Italy, and they love it. And I said, oh my gosh, I've always kind of thought of their kind of corruption and stuff. And he said that they have completely cleaned it up. He said they feel so safe there. They love it. It's probably in between Spain and Portugal as far as the cost of living, which I thought was interesting because I would think that Italy would be more expensive than Spain, but he said no. And so again, you got to do your own research. Now, the other option, there's also obviously Costa Rica. We spent 3 weeks down there thinking before we bought our other home that we might be there, and it just was not a good fit for us. It's so humid, and it just was not a good fit. So again, you got to look at it, but you're going to learn the A to Z of considerations when retiring abroad. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. If you enjoy our free podcast, please follow us on Apple Podcast and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. This is our give back, and all we ask from you is that you share it and that you like it and you tell us what you enjoy about it. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/148. The Millionaire Insider copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement planning, or healthcare advice. By accessing this content, you agree to hold the Millionaire Insider and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. We're going to talk about different aspects when it comes to retiring abroad. Specifically, some of the items I want to address is your financial foundation, considerations you need to take into account before you do move, how to determine if moving overseas is right for you, some of the top lifestyle and healthcare considerations for expats, how to establish guaranteed income and protect your money so that you've got enough money, because a lot of the countries want to know that. They want to know you have income and they want to know that you've got net worth. Now, we had to provide proof of our net worth to be able to get residency in the country where we bought. The interesting point of that was that I made sure that we just showed the amount that was required. I didn't show extra because I thought, I don't know that you want that floating around. So again, just pay attention to that. And then you also want to think about some of the mindset shifts that you are going to probably need to live in a new country. And I know for some people, it's a really hard transition. Other ones, it's a lot easier. So why retiring abroad can be so appealing? For some, it's just about saving money, right? But for others, it's really about freedom, fulfillment, and choice. Many pre-retirees are discovering that living abroad allows them to live a much richer life without overspending. Oftentimes, there's a lower cost of living in countries, Mexico, Portugal, Costa Rica, Thailand. The landscape in different countries is going to shift depending on who's in charge. And you may need to save and consider. We have a lot of friends in Mexico. We own in Mexico. I have a ton of friends that own in Mexico, and they love it. And we do too. It's just that we're looking for possibly some option that might even be over in Europe. So again, you just got to look at that. The power of it is really figuring out what's going to work with your lifestyle. There are people that are moving over to the Philippines and different places. One of my friends that's a realtor, one of his clients moved over there. He absolutely loves it. He's just ecstatic. So again, I think you got to look at that and make sure that wherever you decide works for you. Beyond the money, there's a lifestyle benefit. It's oftentimes a slower pace. Sometimes it's more vibrant communities, better weather, and often stronger social connections. Wherever you live, it's about creating a life you love, really enjoying what you're doing and not feeling constrained by money. That, in my opinion, is the key. The people I know who own places outside the United States have done it more from a perspective, not from running away from something, but more running towards a dream of more simplicity, connection, and purpose. Now, that said, the people that I know that have bought within the last year, a lot of them are running. And so, whether you're running because you want to get into a different political climate or you want to get into even a climate where you're like going to be covered on healthcare, I think personally, probably the biggest concern I have with everything that's going on a lot is the fact that this country is just really getting to where we don't have a middle class. We have people that have money and people that don't, and that is just a disaster. All you need to do is go study any revolution, and you'll know that is a problem long term. But I think, secondly, I have a big concern about healthcare. And what's so interesting is people are so opposed to any type of universal healthcare, whereas when you look at the countries that have it, granted, you say, okay, their taxes are higher, but when you really play in on the cost of healthcare, and God forbid, if something happens, I don't think it's that much more expensive. And I do think that in some countries, the lifestyle is healthier. And so, again, I'm not going to get into a debate on right or wrong. What I'm concerned about is you and your future. And if, God forbid, you have some type of healthcare problem, it can be devastating. And it's the number one cause of bankruptcy. So, we do have to address that and we do have to look at that. But that's why a lot of people move away. One of my peers moved her and her family over to Spain because they couldn't afford the healthcare for her mom. And she said it would have bankrupted us. Whereas over there, they were able to get her coverage. And it's been just a triple win. So you got to look at the big picture and make a decision on what works for you. All right, so let's talk about the financial foundation for living abroad. The key is really having that comprehensive plan so that you know where you are and what you can do, and then make a decision. Before you even consider a move, you've got to know what are those need-based expenses and what are the want-based expenses and what is it going to cost over there? What are the differences as far as cost of living? And what is it going to cost for healthcare, for insurance, if you don't qualify to get on theirs? So you got to look at all those things. And then you also have to look at taxes. What are the tax obligations and are you prepared for that? So in building that financial roadmap, you want a spending plan. You want to look at your investment allocation, insurance coverages, not just what you have here, but what you're going to have there. And then also estate planning documents to make sure that's all coordinated and it's going to work well. Once you know what those need-based expenses are, then you want to look at what are going to be the sources to provide that guaranteed income stream for those need-based expenses, housing, utilities, insurance, taxes, things such as that. That comes from Social Security, a corporate pension, and if you don't have a corporate pension, then a personal pension through an annuity. And that's what's going to replace your paycheck and going to give you a stream of income. Guaranteed income is going to allow you to relax a lot more and enjoy your life so you're not worried about volatility in the market or it being up or down. Now, I don't think you should have all your money in there, although some people have a lot of it because they're just nervous. And if that's you, then try to at least get something that has some potential, like maybe a RILA. I'm going to actually do an article on a RILA just so you understand what it is, because those can be really good for somebody who is really scared about the market, but is willing to take a little bit of risk and still have some potential on the upside. All right, you got to understand currency and banking logics and how it works. You want to maintain accounts in both countries, both the US as well as where you're living, and make sure that you understand assessing it and that you are careful as far as, I personally would not have a ton of money in a foreign bank. Now, that said, a lot of us are looking at possibly having money in different banks outside the United States. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I also don't think it's a bad idea to own some type of alternative investments. I'm not sold on crypto. I just know so many people who have lost money on crypto, both losing it as well as getting viruses and losing all their money. One of my friends from high school who's a doctor, he lost $500,000 because he got a virus. So again, it's not something to joke around with. And if you are going to invest in crypto, you got to be aware of it. The great news about crypto is that it's unregulated. The problem with crypto is that it's unregulated. So again, you got to be really aware of that and you got to know what you're doing. And then always work with a fiduciary who understands ideally cross border finances and can help you coordinate your tax and investments. And if they don't know, they can tie into somebody who does. When you invest in another country, you want an attorney that knows what they're doing. And I have seen people make huge mistakes. I've seen people lose houses because they have not done it correctly. Number three, consider taxes and legalities. Some countries tax global income and others only tax local income. So you want to be aware of that. And then you want to review how your different investments are playing into that, as well as your Social Security, your taxable, non taxable investments, and then also estate planning. And one thing that I think is important, and I debate about putting this in here, but I do think it's important. I really encourage you to work on your worth barometer because if you, say, for instance, are living in the United States and you're trying to escape, a lot of times when we don't deal with those issues and we're not dealing with our belief and our self worth, we get somewhere else and it's not going to improve. So I really encourage you to get really in touch with what success looks like for you, what you need to do to elevate your worth barometer so you're living above the grid more of the time. You're really embodying the emotions you want when you get over there so that you can actually experience them. Because if you just are trying to escape to get over there thinking you're going to feel better, you probably won't. So really take the time to figure that out and then work every day to really embody that. Retiring abroad requires a lot of trust and even belief in yourself. One thing people have shared is that living abroad really brings out a different side of them. And part of it is they have a lot more time, they have more money, they oftentimes have a different set of friends. And so you want to just make sure that you really are working on that inner game so that you can really tie that into your outer game, which is more your financial and your lifestyle action you're going to take based on your plan. So important. All right, some practical steps that can help you, spending time every day meditating. I swear meditating can transform your life. Meditation is so powerful that I'm actually going to have a meditation that's going to be available for you guys to access. I'm going to have something on meditation, something on visualization, and on practical manifestation, because I think all three of those things are so critical, something people need to know and to be able to do, and a lot of them don't. So that's my game plan. You want to replace limiting beliefs, such as I can't afford that with I can afford what I choose. Now, obviously, you need to be realistic, but I think whenever you start putting something out there, first of all, it should always be positive and it should always be present tense, but focus on what you want versus what you don't want. Create a practice of gratitude and mindfulness. That's going to help you reduce fear and build confidence. And then remember, right knowledge plus right action produces the results you desire. That, my friend, is so powerful. All right, number three, the lifestyle planning equation. Retiring abroad is not just about the money. I mean, that's a big factor, but it's really about designing that ideal lifestyle. So I want you to start by asking some questions. What does your perfect day look like? What kind of community do you want to live in? Do you want to pay rent or do you want to own a property? I want to buy something. My husband's like, why? Let's just rent. I kind of envision that I would buy like 100 acres and then like if people needed to come over there, they needed to escape, they could. But I don't know. I don't know if that's a reality. Would be a lot of work. So may not be a reality. You got to figure out if you want land. And then what kind of healthcare do you need and can you get and what does it cost? So let's look at some health and wellness considerations. You want to make sure that you've got access to local hospitals and doctors, regardless of where you live. If you're going to move abroad, you got to look into international health insurance, assuming you can't get on the health insurance for that country. Many countries offer affordable, high quality medical care, but you want to make sure that you've got coverage for emergencies and just different things that come up. When we were in Costa Rica, our son got really sick. I mean, so sick that I thought we were going to have to charter a plane and get him out of there. His temperature was like 105. It was so scary. One doctor couldn't see him because she was actually in another town. So she referred us to another one. He came in after hours. And I mean, he did so many tests and he was so unbelievable. We were charged $60. I thought he's like, I said 6,000. No. And then I'm like, 600. No, 60. I was like, 60, like 60. I was like, oh my God. United States, it would have been 2 grand easily. It was amazing. You want to also focus on wellness routines, walking, yoga, community involvement, support that's going to increase your longevity and bring you joy. And then you also want to look at cultural and emotional adaptations. And then you want to be realistic in your adjustment period. Let's face it. Are you going to have to learn a new language, the customs? Now it's really easy because you can do earbuds where you put it in your ear, put it in their ear, and you can talk and they understand it. So that can be really powerful. It's become so much easier. But at the same time, you probably want to learn some of the language because I think especially like if you end up in some countries, they kind of expect you to speak their language. And I think that'd be part of the fun of it, right? You also want to connect with local residents and even expat groups. Now, down in Mexico, it's all Americans, especially where we are. And it's basically because most people that can afford it are Americans. Again, I mean, I like being out and meeting people. I don't do that as much, but if I lived over in Europe, I'd probably do it a lot more. And then keep that sense of curiosity and humor. That's possibly one of the greatest tools you can have. Your external journey abroad is so connected to your internal one. You know, when you live intentionally, consciously, with a solid plan and clear purpose, your fulfillment is going to expand and you're going to have more joy and you're going to have more security just by nature. So don't discount that. So the next thing is choosing the right country. Now, it's so funny. Portugal comes up again and again. So let's talk about why it's so popular. And one of the reasons is because you can live there at, like literally comfortably for like $2,500 to $3,000 a month. Got very high quality health care and it's ranked strongly in global comparisons and it's relatively inexpensive as compared to the United States. Low crime rate. People describe it as calm, laid back. One thing I have heard is that people aren't super friendly, but I think that depends on where you're at. They are retirement friendly. They offer a D7 retirement passive income visa, and they do have clear income retirements. They used to let you, if you owned a place, be able to move there. One of my friends' parents did that, but that's changed. So you got to be aware of that. Now, Spain comes up, and I think Spain's great. It's got excellent public and private health care. It also ranks very high in life expectancy. It's a warm climate, so that can be good. Their money requirements are really good for people. I think it's like $28,000 a year for single applicants as of this writing. The cost of living in many of the cities is below the United States. Now, Mexico comes up, and I feel very comfortable in Mexico. That said, I think depends on where you go in Mexico. I have a lot of friends that are in Puerto Vallarta, a lot of friends that are in Puerto Penasco. So you just have to be aware of it. But I was just talking with a woman that goes down to Mexico City all the time. She loves it. And she was just going over what you need to do, how you need to protect yourself. And I mean, she was an expert. So that's who you need to talk to if you make that decision. But like Mexico, they're saying, people can live there comfortably with $2,000 to $2,500 a month. Where our place is, I would say that's a little low because most people are American and it's not cheaper. I don't find like the food, I don't find cheaper. I don't find a lot of the things cheaper. So again, you got to do your own research. Italy, I mentioned that. Now, the thing about Italy is different communities, where they have become kind of obsolete. They are like literally getting people to come into the community. My friend said you can get a nice place between 50 and 250,000. Now, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if I'd consider it nice, but I mean, they live in a very nice home. So it's got to be somewhat nice. Some other ones that have come up, Panama is one that's come up, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Colombia, Thailand, Malaysia, and then some people say Asia Pacific. I think so much of it depends where you want to be, and it kind of depends on what your goal is. So just pay attention and do your own research. Building emotional and financial security. Obviously, emotional well-being is vital to financial security, and we kind of talked about that earlier as far as your worth barometer. Got to make sure that you understand you're leaving behind familiar routines, friends, and family. And for some people, that's really lonely. one woman who moved to France, she said she was just miserable. And so her and her husband were considering coming back, but she hadn't made any effort to learn the language. She had been so busy still working. So I didn't think it was a real true gauge if that was right. One of the things I recommend you do, regardless of where you end up, if you're moving from where you've lived, is visit for an extended period of time before relocating permanently. Rent before buying to ensure the lifestyle aligns with what you envision it to be. And then make sure and keep an emergency fund in your home country. Always, always, always keep that option open if you want to come back. And I encourage you to maintain a United States address or contact for banking and legal correspondence. And then you want to schedule regular check ins with your financial advisor to review your plan and make sure you're sticking with it. What are some of the mindset shifts? You've got to replace fear with curiosity and gratitude. Now, I'm assuming most people that are considering moving abroad do not have fear. I laugh and I just think it's so interesting. People are like, oh my gosh, be so careful when I go down to Mexico. Clearly, you have to be careful. You have to be careful everywhere. I find it fascinating because clearly there have been some murders in the area where I am. Two of the American women, their husbands, their American husbands murdered them. And there was a Canadian woman that got murdered. They think she got robbed. So there, I have been isolated situations. I was laughing because somebody's like, be careful. I'm like, there's been no murders here. I've been down here for a week and there's been like 9 in Phoenix alone. So again, you just got to be aware of it. And I think no matter where you are, pay attention and do your own research. You want to focus on what you want and the gain you can have rather than what you're leaving behind, and look at it kind of as the next stage. And you just got to be willing to go with the flow some because it's going to be different. All right, number 7, staying connected while living abroad. I encourage you to keep close ties with your family and friends, video calls, annual visits, or even shared travel adventure, getting people to come visit you. A woman that lives across from my sister in Mexico, she's a resident of Canada. And so she goes from Canada to Mexico and she loves it. And she has people come visit her and she's just living the dream life. Consider joining expat communities or volunteer organizations to build meaningful relationships. I know a lot of people down where we are very involved in an animal shelter, and they're also involved with helping some of the real poor families. So it can be really powerful. And then you want to make sure you maintain connections with professionals like your advisory team, your financial advisor, CPA, and estate planning attorney, and that you keep your plan up to date. And then you also want to look at the country's culture, history, people, learn, be curious. You're going to be a lot more successful and have a lot more friends if you're curious about their life, what's going on with them, and become a part of their culture. And then finally, I want you to reevaluate your plan. I want you to review your financial plan at least annually and make sure to update it anytime you have a major change. You want to track your spending as well as your income sources to ensure you're on target, and do that sooner rather than later. Make sure and continue to revisit and review healthcare, tax rules, as well as international policies that can change. And then update your estate plan to reflect how your new residency or property holdings abroad are going to be impacted. Now, if the dream stops feeling right, like you're no longer passionate about it, then it's okay to pivot. It's okay to leave and return home. This is just something temporary. That's why I want you to live there and test it out before you make some major decision. Living abroad isn't an escape as much as an expansion, and it's about really designing a life of meaning, contribution, and joy wherever you are. And again, we all have to make that decision. So I'm going to just really quickly recap. You got to revisit, why is retiring abroad so appealing to you? Make sure you have that financial foundation in order. That's so important. Make sure that you're clear on your lifestyle equation and what you're really looking for so you know what would work for you. And then you got to choose that right country. There's no right or wrong. I gave you some options, but you got to do the own work. You got to make sure that you've got, that you're building that emotional and financial security. And then you want to make sure you stay connected with people back home. And then you want to make sure that you continue to reevaluate your plan. Oh, my friends, that's so important. Just as another reminder, living abroad is really about designing a life that you envision that's full of meaning, contribution, and joy wherever you are. So take the time to create that. All right. I want to thank you so much for joining me. As a recap, I just want you to remember that retiring abroad is more than relocating. It's really reinventing your life. It's really a new chapter in your life. And when you combine a solid financial foundation with a clear vision and you've got that inner game working, it can be your best life ever. And you could be living your dream retirement and really having a secure financial future. So I really encourage you to take advantage of it. So if you don't have a financial plan or you need some help, I really encourage you to download our financial freedom formula guide. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FFG. The financial freedom formula guide is really geared towards helping you to create that financial freedom so that you have the choice of what you need to do. And you're looking at it from all aspects of your foundation, your strategy, and your execution, your inner game, your game plan, and your outer game. And that's going to help you regardless of where you live. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Just remember that you can live the life you love anywhere in the world. It can be abroad or it can be here. You just have to decide what works for you. And the rest is history. I'll look so forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye for now.